Hey, what's up guys? Back here with the video on pitchers this time. I have a lot of videos up on hitters. You may have seen a couple of those, Aaron Judge, Cody Bellinger, etc. Pitchers, it's a little bit more complex in terms of how I go about determining things like stamina, control, movement on their pitches. So for the batters, it's pretty simple. It's a pretty straightforward formula. And I'm able to use ESPN with the splits and the hot and cold zones and all of that like I talked about in my videos. But for pitchers, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and look at Cole Hamels of the Rangers, and then we're going to look at Carter Capps of the Padres. Say Carter Capps, you'll see why here in a minute. First thing, Cole Hamels. Got him rated as a 4-star. To me, he's a 4-star pitcher. Usually what I'll do if I give a guy a 4-star rating for a starting pitcher, it's a guy with an ERA of 4, 4.5, somewhere around there, or lower. Same with relievers. And I do afford some kind of leeway for pitchers in Colorado, just the same way I would subtract for their hitters. But regardless, we have Cole as a 4-star pitcher. Now, with control, movement, everything like that, it's actually a matter of ERA. Because how can you track control? How can you track movement, right? So it's more a matter of where a guy stacks up ERA-wise versus other guys. And keeping the guys with the 2 ERAs in the same range, control and movement-wise. In the 3 range, same thing, keeping them in the same range with the ERAs that are roughly the same. But the reason I selected Cole was when I last did this project, and this is something that only needs to be done every few years, but when I first picked this up, I wasn't differentiating between straight fastball and a splitter. And so I went ahead and went through all the pitchers that have a page in Fangraphs. And so that's what I've been working on the past few weeks. And a lot of guys are throwing splitters. A lot of guys have a couple uptick or a downtick in velocity. Things of that nature. So with Cole, what I did was you go and look at his Fangraphs page, and he's throwing regular fastball 26% of the time. Now, back when I did this before, his second pitch was his changeup, curveball, cutter, so on. Now, if we look to split things out, we see that fastball's 26%, the sinker 23% of the time, changeup 21% of the time, cutter 17% of the time, and then the curve 12 to 13% of the time. So we have to go ahead and make changes here and kind of afford for the fact that the change is no longer his second most used pitch. We'll have to bump that down to third. So when I do these, I try to keep them in the order of what I see here in Fangraphs in terms of how often they're used. And I try to get a rating on the pitch overall of the volume he uses it in. That's how I try to do it. If the sinker is his second most used pitch, we try to have that higher rated than the changeup. Changeup's his third most used pitch, so we try to have that higher in a rating or overall rating than his cutter, which is his fourth most used pitch. So hopefully that makes sense for you guys. But what I do here, if I see the sinker, I'll just replace his ratings for the change with that. So you see here movement 75, control 72. Go ahead and change that to the sinker, 75, bump this to 72. Now what we can do though, good thing about Fangraphs is you can scroll through and see velocity by pitch type. Fastball, he's right about 92. Have to drop him down a tick. He was about 93 when I last did this. Sinker velocity is right about the same. So now we go ahead and go through the rest of the pitches here. So we've got to now put the changeup in, the cutter, and then go to the curveball. Take those ratings, apply those to the changeup. 65 and 66. So just bear with me, guys. I'm going to try to just go ahead and mow through these real quick. Change up velocity here, according to Fangraphs, is 83. So it's great to get some accuracy in these things. Thank goodness we have all these tools. Cutter's up next. Looks like that pitch was always right in this range. Looks like his velocity on his cutter's 89, so we'd bump him up a couple ticks there. And then the curveball. And so what I try to do, and again, it's not scientific, he uses the curveball less, try to give that pitch an overall rating a little bit less than the pitch before. Hopefully in a game situation that creates a kind of thing where he'll use that pitch a little less, but you never know how the computer is going to work. So that's Cole Hamels. That's how I do it. Now let me show you Carter Capps real quick. And the reason why I grabbed him was because he was a guy who didn't pitch at all in 2016. Excuse me, go back to San Diego here. When he was throwing for the Marlins that year, when he was pitching, really solid ERA. So you see his overall rating is pretty high here. It's a 2-pitch pitcher, fastball, slider. You're going to see some drastic stuff here. So at the time I had him at a 4-star. Based on his ERA, we'll keep that quiet for now, but based on his ERA, definitely need to drop down to a 3-star. And one quick thing, everybody I have in the game is a minimum of a 3-star. That keeps them from, when progression happens, from not declining too much in a given year. But there are guys that are 4-star, like the prospects and all the other good players, and 5 stars as well. Guys like Kershaw, Harper, Trout, the usual guys that you would expect. So what I do when I have a 4-star reliever to differentiate him from a 3-star reliever, I'm going to go ahead and drop this pickoff down here a little bit. I have the stamina over 40. Usually 43, 44, somewhere in that range for a 4-star guy. For a 3-star guy, I go ahead and I have them in 37, 38 range. At the time in 2015, and even if you look back to 14, his ERA was actually around 1 in 2015. But the year prior, in 2014, his ERA was above 3.5. Take it year to year when I adjust these ratings, but what happened was, due to some injury issues, he comes back in where he was throwing a fastball in 2014-15 around 97, 98 miles an hour. Now he's only at 93 miles an hour. Take a look at the velocity on the slider, same thing, down 4 miles per hour, and obviously that would explain why his ERA has taken such a huge jump. The stuff just isn't there anymore like it used to be a couple years ago prior to the injury. So his sliders actually, it was a bit high then. It should have been around 84, 85, but now his slider's only coming in at 79 miles an hour. So a drop of about 5 miles an hour, and fortunately that's the lowest velocity there. Now what you need to do also is account for control and movement. When I have a guy that has a ERA, say about 5 or higher, guys that aren't really performing that well, I'll put their control into the 60s, sometimes even lower if he's really bad. In the case of Capps, he doesn't have a lot of data to go off of. His ERA is really high, so we'll give him some leeway here based on his kind of career prior to the injury, just to see if he can recover. And with the control on the secondary pitch, have it a couple notches below the primary. Movement, it's the same kind of thing. If a guy's ERA is, say, in the 2, 3, 4 range, that movement could be 65, 70, 75. And we're talking about relievers. So when you're talking about a guy with such a low ERA, with a high ERA, I'd have his movement around 60. And, that's probably being pretty generous based on his stats. But like I said, not a lot of data there. So we want to go ahead and kind of give him some leeway. And these things are checked on often. I'm always checking the stats every month or so, just doing the updates and everything like that. But again, that's just real quick. I want to show you a couple things, show you kind of that there is a method I use. It's an internal thing that I use based on guys' ERAs, how they're performing in terms of making sure they're comparable relative to each other based on their movement and control. And that's not always accurate in real life, because we know Cole's curveball has a lot more movement than some of his other pitches. But to get those pitches to be rated higher overall, and to get him, or hopefully to get the computer to throw those pitches more often when you're out there playing in the game against them, then that's what we have to go with. We have to kind of determine some way to rate these pitches higher than others if he's using them more often. So that's how I do it. If you guys have any questions, if you want to see anything, any explanations of anybody, go ahead and let me know. You know where to find me. Thanks as always, guys. Take care.